everybody. How are you?
And then we hear applause. Yay, everybody
Yay!
supporting out there. Yay. And up go the lighters. Do they even do that? Doesn't even happen anymore, does it? Now it's all the iPhones.
Well, you know, you got those apps that's got a flame.
Okay.
Like that's got the flame like out of a lighter, you know?
Right.
And I've seen thousands of those. You know, people hold them up at shows, and you know, it's quite interesting actually.
Does it give the same feeling that you used to get when the lighters were up? Is it like the same? Is it the same thing, only it's modern?
It's the same thing. I mean, really, to be honest with you, you know, I don't really, you know, the lighters and everything, I think gives it more of a ambience. So, because when you got 25,000 lighters lit up, it's kind of like you're having candlelight dinner without the food, you know?
Right.
So it's, but you know what? Everything progresses forward, and, you know, gets modern as modern as like what we're doing right now.
I know.
I mean, if you think about it, during COVID, my gal Stacy and I mean, we lived on FaceTime because I was stuck here, you know, in Florida at the home, and she was stuck up there, you know, caring for her parents up in Memphis. And wow, I mean, it was like, you know, over a year. I mean, what was it, 13 months that we physically didn't, you know, see each other.
Oh.
And so thank God for modern technology, FaceTime. And, you know, FaceTime, I mean, we lived on that, you know, 20 times a day. And, you know, plus other, you know, my daughter, you know, FaceTimed her all the time, and certain other friends, you know, and stuff like that. And it was like, it was a trip, you know, to have to live. Thank God for modern technology back then. Mm-hmm. You know, I shouldn't say back then. That's only been 2 years ago. But anyway, it's great to have this kind of stuff because, you know, with all the new apps that's out now, and I'm actually kind of a tech head. I learned how to operate Pro Tools on my own by reading and studying and watching YouTube videos and, you know, so forth and so on, and was able to maneuver around Pro Tools on my own, recording and editing and everything else like that. So by modern technology, you know, I was able to do it. So I'm really kind of a tech head, and I like modern technology for some things. For other things, I kind of frown down on it. And I think there's good and bad in everything. Mm-hmm. You know, I guess first of all, you know, as you well know, I'm not a big Facebook fan. I'm never on Facebook. I'm never on Twitter. I think that people get into these things and arguments ensue, and people get hard feelings, and there's fights and arguments and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I do think there are good points about the internet. You know, I mean, you learn about, for instance, myself, I've learned about a whole lot of things about health and, you know, taking care of yourself and so forth and so on. And I'm really into health, and learning about it back when I, you know, had the virus, you know, when I ended up getting it, I had a great doctor with a great team of assistants and nurses and stuff that really, I got to give credit to, that really got me through it very quickly, as a matter of fact. You know, we've heard a lot of controversy about the monoclonal treatment.
Antibodies, yeah.
You know, Regeneron. And well, I myself only have one lung. A lot of people know that. Some people don't. but I do, and I have a really compromised respiratory illness called bronchiectasis, which they basically, in other words, is pulmonary fibrosis.
Right.
And so when I, you know, everybody, I know there's a lot of controversies about, you know, taking the vaccine and all that stuff, you know, and people frown down on people that can't take it. Well, or won't take it.
Mhm.
Well, I won't take it because I can't take it because my doctor advised against it
Right.
because of the exact thing, because the vaccine is loaded with the virus. And if it went to my lung and my respiratory system, I'm done. Well, when I got the virus and I tested positive for it, I was, you know, I qualified for the monoclonal treatment.
Mhm.
And it's interesting. It freaked me out that I had it, first of all. And I go,
yeah.
oh,
Can I
boy.
stop you there? Because you literally, and you know, I spoke to you several times during your isolation. I mean, you were literally isolated for over a year. You were by yourself in that house, and the only time you got out was to go fishing by yourself. You poor
Well,
man.
I can tell you I didn't catch it from a fish.
Oh, I know that. So you and Skinner go back out on the road.
Well, it happened before that.
Did it really?
Yeah, I went finally when I was able to travel up to Memphis. I traveled up there, and so I was fine and wore a mask the whole time. And I believe what happened was, and I was very isolated even up there. I believe what happened, the only time I was not isolated was in airports and airplanes.
Mm.
And I believe that's kind of maybe where I picked it up. Nonetheless, when I did get it, I called my doctor. My doctor had been monitoring me when I started feeling bad. And when I went over to a laboratory to get really tested the right way, not a, you know, quick test or none of that stuff, you know. Well, when I went over to the laboratory 2 hours later, they called me and said, you've tested positive, you know. And so I called my doctor right away. Well, it was about 10 after 4, 4:15 that on a Friday. And my doctor said, hold the phone. He went over and then he came back. He said, do you know where Naples Physicians Hospital is? I went, no. He says, well, the lady that heads up the COVID department, monoclonal department, you qualified to get the monoclonal treatment. He said, it's the antibodies. He said, Rickey, if you get that, you'll be coming out of it in less than 24 hours. So he said, but you got to get there. She was due to leave, but she said she will wait on you because I told her it was a very important patient and that she needed to, you know, to stay there. Well, I was doing 85, 90 miles an hour in my truck going down to Naples.
In your what? What kind of truck?
Oh, I got a badass truck.
I know you do.
I got a beautiful Nissan Titan, you know.
No, I'm sorry. I had to do that though because of the whole truck thing. Remember?
All black. You know.
How sick did you feel? How sick were you feeling when you had to drive yourself to the freaking hospital? That had to be.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'll be really honest with you. What I ended up doing was, you know, with the direction of my doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people don't believe in this, but I'm just here to tell you folks, it worked for me. Now think about it. Think about that whole time during COVID, you know, I'm on a regimen of supplements,
right,
including ivermectin and I was doing great. As a matter of fact, towards the end of, I guess, 2020, I mean, I started going out and, going to restaurants and isolating myself at restaurants with a mask and sitting outside and away from people and all that stuff. I was doing fine. And I believe that that's one of the things that really kept me from getting it as bad. But what happened was I woke up one morning, I think it was on a Wednesday before that Friday. I woke up with one of the worst headaches and worst backache than I've ever had in my whole entire life.
Wow.
And my ears were ringing profusely to where I was like, oh my God, I can't stand this. Well, I went through that whole thing. I started pounding ibuprofens, kind of eased the headache off a little bit, backache to where I could maneuver, where I could tolerate it. Come Thursday, actually was when I started feeling really bad.
Wow.
Then on Friday, I had felt bad that whole day, but I didn't have any trouble breathing. I didn't have any problem. I still had the taste and the smell. Didn't lose none of that.
Oh, wow.
And I had doubled up on everything, all the supplements. And the doctor had written me a prescription for a Z-Pack and prednisone.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on those immediately. Well, I beat it down to Naples. And when I got to the hospital, it's the last exit going down 75. But when I got to the hospital at the emergency room entrance, the lady, the head of the COVID department, was standing out front waiting on me.
That's great.
I rolled my window down. She said, park your truck, come on in. So I parked the truck. I ran in. She got me in there, put me on the monitoring. And one of the oddest things she couldn't believe was for the fact of how my respiratory illness system is. She couldn't believe that my blood oxygen level was between 98 and 100%.
Wow.
And she goes, wow. She goes, you really must take steps to, really, do things, take care. I said, yeah, I do, Well, she kept monitoring. She ordered the Regeneron. It came. She started the process, did the infusion, took about 20 minutes, and then gave me the instructions she monitored me for another hour to make sure I was going to be all right with it. And I was. And she said, Mr. Medlocke, you need to go home because you're probably going to get very sleepy. Mm. And I felt good all the way back home until I got about 2.5, 3 miles from here. And all of a sudden, it's like somebody gave me a super knockout drug.
Wow.
And I started going to sleep. And when I rolled in my garage, put the door down, and I came in and I fell in bed and I didn't remember nothing until the next day.
Wow.
Well, the next day I slept and I kept sleeping, and I'd get up. My headache was gone. Backache was gone. The ringing in my ears had decreased. My breathing was great. Stayed on my prednisone and Z-Pack and my other supplements that I was doing. And in less than 24 hours, I was coming out of it. And I remember talking to Stacy. She goes, wow, you're up and around. I said, yeah. Amazing. She goes, your color's great. Everything. I talked to one of our background vocalists, Carol. Her and her daughter was there at their place in Nashville, and she couldn't believe. She goes, oh my God, look at you. And I said, yeah. And I'm just here to testify and tell you, that the monoclonal treatment for people that qualify for it, it works.
Yeah, it's a miracle. It's a miracle
I am
drug.
a walking testimony
Mhm.
to it, and I have, nobody from any talk shows or anything has reached out to me, for my opinion or my testimony, but I'm just here to tell you, it works. It really works.
Well,
so
I'm happy it worked. I was scared, because I knew that you were not vaccinated. I knew that it was dangerous for you to be vaccinated. And I was scared. Right now, I just on a side note, my daughter, her husband, and my 2 granddaughters who live in Australia. Australia is having their surge now. And they all 4 are powering through COVID right now, all 4 of them in the house. Yeah. And so I had the last like 9-10 days have been pretty tough because I wasn't sure. My 3 of them are double vaccinated, but my 11-year-old granddaughter, they only started vaccinating children about a month ago. And she was on the waiting list for vaccination. So, but it looks like they're going to be okay. They seemed yesterday they were up and about and walking around, but they didn't they don't even have those antibodies. They claim to have them in Australia. My daughter had no idea what they were because I was like, you got to get the antibody treatment.
Yeah, well, here, what I believe? I believe that we're going to have to manage and navigate always through whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be here for now until whenever. And we just got to learn how to manage and navigate through it all.
Right.
Keep in mind, when I was out and about, I always had a mask on, always. And, there's a lot of controversies that, the mask doesn't work, especially the cloth ones,
mm-hmm.
Because the virus itself is so microscopically small that it can pass through just about anything. So, nowadays I am in the biggest habit. Of course, you got to still fly with a mask on, and I do, but I am in such a habit of washing my hands just religiously all the time. It doesn't matter. It's weird, even here at the house. Now, my house is, I keep the house very, very, very clean. We always have, And I don't like seeing nothing on the floor. I'll vacuum like crazy, and But I think that you got to keep in mind how to manage the situation. We're going to have to be very conscious and very, perceptive to our environment and how to get through the environment and live our everyday life. And that's a big challenge. I know that's a challenge for some people. It is for me, but it is possible. And for me, still being around for my family and still being around for my band and, going through all what I went through. I mean, Johnny Van Zant, was calling me 3 and 4 times a day to check on me. My manager was calling me 3 and 4 times a day. My gal was calling me 20 times a day. Skinner's management calling me, half a dozen times a day. And I mean, I know, for the people that we were supposed to play, and I know that it went out all over every news media that it was, remember Leonard Skinner has tested positive for COVID. We had to drop 5 shows. 3 of them we made up, but the other 2 were special events, and they were just gone,
Right.
And I'm really sorry that, people that were going to see us at those special events that I missed it. I hate missing shows. And for Rickey, I'll be real honest with you. That is the first time in my music history, out of all the sickness that I've had, it's the first time in my music history that I ever had to cancel shows.
Wow.
Ever. And it still bums me.
I can see that.
I mean, we made up 3 of them, but it still bums me that I lost 2.